I I hear something. I hear someone. Oh, look. It's Hef, the IT guy. Hi, Hef. How's it going? Oh, hi, Comet Troy. It's been a while. Sure has. Hey, would you be willing to show our viewers that Google map, that custom Google map you made for me on the Linden Camp property as we were planning it all out? I don't know. It's Sunday. It's my day off. I'm just relaxing, taking it easy today, just hanging out. I really don't feel like working. Pretty please, with sugar on top and a cherry. All right, if you insist. I guess I could dust off the computer and do a little bit of work and show your viewers what I did for you. Come on, follow me. Oh, let me tell you about him. He is a nutcase. He walks around here in his robe all day long. He works for a bank in IT computer security. You couldn't tell it by looking at him. You know, he's a full-time RVer. He gets up out of bed, doesn't set an alarm, just when he naturally wakes up, he gets out of bed, puts on his robe, uses the bathroom, sits down in front of his computer and logs on for the day. In that robe. He just sits there and just works in that all day. What a life, I tell you. Well, I think he's missing a few screws, so you got to be a little careful. Whatever, Comet Troy. Can you believe that guy? I've lived with him for over 40 years now, and he just thinks he's a know-it-all, walks around like he's God. You try living with him for that long, and you be the judge. Hi, I'm Hef the IT guy, and today we're going to have some fun in Google Maps. Now, Comet Troy approached me and said, Hef, I need to design my property while I'm away. And, can you give me a hand with some of your computer skills? So you're excited. You have an accepted contract on some vacant land. You can't wait for the closing to come. I am going to teach you an invaluable tool that I have personally used, and it's all free. I'm going to talk about building an RV park in this video. This is an exact process that we went through, developed over a month, and I'm going to condense it all down into about an hour for you. Now, the video is divided up into 6 episodes, and they're all in this same video. I'm going to briefly run through them to tell you what each of the 6 are. The first one is giving a overview of doing custom maps in Google Maps. The second episode is boots on the ground, going out to a property, taking pictures with GPS location turned on, and then importing those photos into your Google Map to show where things are located. Episode 3 is taking the survey or plat from the seller that was provided, or you can ask for it. You can also get it from the county, but that we're going to use that to actually create lot lines on a custom Google map to draw out the property lines. And then episode 4, we're going to take all 3 of those using Google Maps as a tool, using the photos that we took, boots on the ground, and using the plat or survey from the seller, and we're going to put all that together, and we're going to draw some lot lines and validate them with the photos and the plat and have them reasonably accurate without having to hire a surveyor. 5 is showing Linden Camp. We've already gone through this process and laid out Linden Camp with pretty good detail. I'm going to show the finished product of Linden Camp and take you through, what that's going to look like. It's an RV park that we're in the process of building. And then episode 6, we're going to talk about flooding using Google Maps to determine if your property is susceptible to flooding. And at the end of all 6 of these episodes, I hope that you'll have some valuable new knowledge that you can use when purchasing and closing on real estate. Let's get right into it. I'm using Google Chrome on a regular PC. I'm using a laptop. Your mileage is going to vary if you're on an iPhone or an Android. So you go into Chrome and you just go to maps.google.com. So here's Google Maps, which I'm sure that everyone watching is familiar with. But what you're probably not familiar with is you can go up to these three bars up here. Of course, on Chrome and a PC, and you can bring down the Google Maps menu. And one of the menu options is called Your Places. So if you click on Your Places, it brings up 4 tabs across the top. There's a list, labeled, visited, and maps. So if you click on the Maps tab, which is the far right tab, now Penelope is dreaming and talking in her sleep. Can you hear that? Cute. So you go into Maps. It says no maps, so I can go ahead and create a map here. Now I'm going to create a map that has buildings in it. We're going to look at the Madison State Capitol. I'm going to hit save, and then that's, boom, going to give me a map. So now we need to find the state capitol. So I'm just going to go up to the Google search bar and the Google Maps and type in Madison, Wisconsin, and state capitol comes out with the third one. So I'm just going to click that. It will zoom me down into the state capitol. So here's the standard view you get. Now you'll notice that there's not a layers button here. So the way that you would change the layer is you change the underlying base map. And where you do that is over here on the left. There's a drop down arrow. You get presented with 9 different map types, terrain maps, mono city, whitewater, and I honestly haven't even looked at any of these other ones. I always just turn on the satellite view because that's my favorite. And then you're ready to begin designing. So we're just going to whip through some of these tools real quick. The tool palette is really small. There's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 icons up here. The first 2 are simple, an undo and a redo. I mean, everybody knows what those are. There's a select items and, move your map around. So that takes care of 3 of the 7. That leaves you with 4 useful tools. There's a throw a marker or a pinpoint, or you probably called it a Google, or heard of it as a Google pin before. So I can drop pins on this map. And the cool thing about dropping pins is it actually gives you the GPS coordinates that are very useful. I have a line tool, which allows me 4 options. It allows me to draw lines and rectangles and shapes, or it will allow me to make a walking path, a biking path, or a driving path. And then there's a directions, which is probably what you're all familiar with in Google Maps. If you've ever used Google Maps to get anywhere, you're very familiar with the directions function of Google Maps. So they allow you to put some pre-planned directions on these maps as well. And then the last tool here, which is one of my favorites, is a ruler. So if I pick my ruler and I pick on the dome of the Capitol here, and I'm not holding down the mouse button. You just click it once and just move your mouse wherever. Out to the curb is approximately 400 feet, and I can swing this around all the directions. So the Capitol is, it looks like on the northeast side it's a little bit shorter, 375 feet. And then that might be with the angle of the picture too, because we're not looking straight down on the cone. So, and that's an important point here too, is that these maps are not survey construction quality. I mean, they're within plus or minus a few feet. So it just gives you a rough idea how to lay things out. The line tool is I can add a line or shape. So we're going to draw the property line of the Capitol. I'm going to start here at the top, and I'm going to click left once. I'm going to go down to here, click again, click down here on the south, and then click on the west. And then finally, if you click on the dot where you started, it actually fills the shape in, and it's semi-transparent. I'm going to call it lot lines. Now if I hit save, it will actually tell me that the land that the Capitol sits on in the state of Wisconsin is 14 acres. And if I was to walk this lot line, it's 0.591 miles. So about 0.6 or almost 2/3 of a mile to walk the perimeter of the Capitol if I was to walk the curb. I can click on the paint tool and I can make it yellow to make it stand out better. And now you can see how it's semi-transparent. There's a poly transparency slider here in the bottom. You can make it all solid, or you can make it completely transparent. And then at the bottom is the border width. So I'm going to make the border a little bit thicker so you can see it. And that is where I started when I designed the Linden Camp for Comet Troy, is I started by drawing lot lines. You can just draw a straight line too, so you can draw, you can't really draw circles, but the way you draw a circle is, I'm going to zoom in here. So here's, I'm going to draw a circle around this southeast entrance. So I just picked the line tool, and I'm just going to just move my mouse and just keep hitting the left mouse button as I go around the outside of this. Is it going to be, a perfect cylinder, cylinder around there? No, but it will give me a rough idea, and it will look like a circle, depending upon how many dots I put on here. And then I go back to the beginning, and there's my, I'm going to call this the southeast entrance. Hit save, and that is 0.2 acres, so a little less than a quarter acre. And if I was to walk that, it would be 341 feet. I'm not going to, mess with the other settings. I mean, I think you get the idea. I can draw a straight line, so if I wanted to draw a line to say how far is it going to take me to walk, from this exit out to the red car, I can draw a path there and say, okay, there's the red car. And then to finish it, I just click that last point a second time, and it will, walk to car. And it will tell me that's 229 feet. You can zoom in and out, and as you do, the stuff that you drew will zoom in and out with it, so it's fixed to the map. So you can actually see where the Capitol is located in the city of Madison. It's between two lakes. Driving directions, I guess I'll just show that real quick. It's nothing really spectacular, as you can click on this add directions here. And what it will do is it will add another layer to the map. So I can put in my driving directions here, state capital. And it doesn't have to be the state capital, it can be anywhere. I just happen to pick it because I'm working on it. And another Wisconsin attraction is the House on the Rock. So I'm going to type that in, which isn't too far. I'm going to click that. And Google Maps will actually go in and add a driving direction to from the state capitol to the House on the Rock, and show you how to get there. And you can zoom in and zoom all that out, and just like you would, using Google Maps while you're in your vehicle. So you can actually uncheck layers here. So the directions goes in its own layer. So if I just want to clear the layer, but I still want to keep it on there, but I don't want to see it, I can just uncheck the checkbox, and it will just remove that, driving directions from there. I can click and remove the lot line that I drew, so I can just uncheck that as well, and then those will disappear. So I used a lot of that type of technique in designing Linden Camp. So that's the gist, and that's the end of the demo that I'm going to give you on the Capitol building. This concludes episode 1, and we will be heading to episode 2 shortly. So you went out to the property, you took a bunch of pictures, you had GPS turned on so that the photos would automatically put the GPS. Now I'm going to give you a little tip. This is something that really This is really super important because it messed me up and I wasted a ton of time if you don't do it right. So out here, you know, in the rural areas of Tennessee, you know, in the woods especially with trees blocking you, the GPS signal is not that great. So you may be, you know, in this location here, and then you'll walk over 50 feet. So you'll take a picture here, you'll walk over 50 feet, you'll snap another picture. Well, just because you walked from this location to that location 50 feet, the GPS on my phone wasn't automatically updating. So if I wanted to take a picture and have the GPS coordinates be right, what I'd have to do is have my phone, and I would actually go into Google Maps, and I would click on the re home button, so it would take me to my current location, read the GPS signal, and it would update my Google map of where I was currently standing. Then I could get my camera out, take the picture, and then the GPS coordinates would be pretty darn accurate. Now, if I walked 50 feet over there, I'd have to repeat the process. So it was a little time consuming, and there's probably a better way to do it, but that's what Hef, the IT guy, figured out, and that's what he did. And then all those pictures are on an Android. I don't know what you do if you're on an iPhone. So this is more of an Android thing. But the pictures, once they're in Google Photos, you can take them and add them to a photo album. And this is where things get really neat. Is you can go in here and you can click Add a Layer. And then it's going to make an untitled layer here at the bottom. And I can click Import. Get a load of this. I can import a photo album from my Google Photos with the GPS coordinates already in them. So check this out. So I can click on Photo Albums. And then that brings up all my photo albums. I can pick Tennessee Land here. And now I can just start picking photos that I want to put on my map. So I took pictures of a lot of the lot signs that were for sale yet. So you can just pick these photos, and it doesn't allow you to just take like 500 photos. I think I found the limit to be somewhere around 30. So you can import about 30 pictures into a layer. So here was a marker I found in some trees. That might be useful. Let's see, what else? Here's some stakes. I took pictures of that mark various delineations of the property. I'm going to bring those on. So, and you can take regular pictures too. Whatever your heart desires. And then when you get a few pictures taken, you can just say select. And then what it will do is it will load those photos and the GPS coordinates onto your custom map, and it will actually place a pinpoint where each of those photos was taken. How cool is that? So on the left here, you'll see all my photos came in. So it looks like I uploaded, and as I scroll over them, you can see the dots highlighting through the middle of the screen there. So I doubt I actually took a picture over here. I was never on this road. So is it perfect? No. Sometimes, the GPS, it's not science, okay? It's not going to be 100% factual. What it does is it gives you a good idea of where things are, and it was pretty good in my opinion. So now I have these photos imported, and just like all the other layers, you can turn them off and turn them on. So I'm going to turn them on, and now I can start zooming in. So I can actually, see the photo that I imported with the stake with the red and the yellow ribbon tied around it. That was taken right here by where the power pole is for the electric company. And you can actually click on your pinpoint and it will actually show you the picture. So there's the picture I took, and it gives me the GPS coordinates here in the bottom of where that was taken, 35, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to read the whole thing and bore you. But this was a super valuable tool to map out and to see where things are with the land. This concludes episode 2, where we showed how to import photos with GPS location services turned on. Episode 3 is a fairly short episode. So even though this episode is real short, there is one small thing that you can do. Typically when the developer lays out a plat, it's done on a large format piece of paper. And then when buyers get a copy of the plat, it's usually printed on a 11 by 17 piece of paper. Now, the problem with this is if you have old ass eyes like I do that go to hell at about age 40, trying to read the small print on the right hand side here is damn near impossible. So you have two options. You can go the old fashioned way, or you can use a high-tech way. So the old-fashioned way is using a magnifying glass. And with the magnifying glass, you can read the small numbers and the small print, fairly easy. The high-tech way, of course, is taking your 11 by 17 inch piece of paper and using a good quality camera and taking pictures of the plat, and then putting it into a PDF file where you can zoom in. And that's exactly what I'm showing here on the screen is the PDF file that I did. So I took a high up picture that I could get the whole 11 by 17. And then I went in a little bit closer and took the left side of the plat in an 8.5 by 11 format so I could zoom in a little bit better. And then I took the right side. So here's the right side of the plat, and then I zoomed in on the actual table so I can read it. And as you can see here, the numbers are really easy to read. You have reference numbers. The curves in my plat started with a C, the line started with an L, and you just go onto the plat and do yourself a favor and just write down the length of the lines that you're going to be creating in episode 4. So on my particular property, lot 24, my lines are L168, L169, L170, L171, and so on and so forth. I got a C4 and a C5 curve, and I wrote those down here on the right-hand side and added up the total length. So basically, you just got to do a little bit of prep work to make it easier. Do you have to do it in this episode? No. I mean, you can do it when you get to 4. It's just what I did is I worked with the plat to make it more usable for something that I could use. This concludes episode 3, where we talk about surveys, plots, and written information that we received from the seller and the taxing authority. All right, let's get started with episode 4. This is where things get really exciting. We're going to tie everything together. We're actually going to draw an actual lot line, and then we're going to adjust it to match our survey information, and we're going to validate it with the photos, and we're going to do this all in Google Maps. So without further ado, let's get right to it. Now, once you have the plat and you have all the feet marked on all your lot lines, you can then go and find the property on Google Maps. So I typed in Linden, I zoomed into Linden, and I looked at the roads to identify the general location of my property. And you can see the curve down here on the left. That's an identifying feature that maps up to the curve right here on the Google map. And then there's a road that goes off to the south, so that's the road over here, and the plot that goes off to the south. And then McGee Road goes to the north at a T. So right here is McGee Road, and it's really kind of an eyeball thing. You know, think about it like you're putting together a puzzle and you're trying to figure out where the puzzle pieces go. So you're basically just trying to map the plat with your eyeballs to the Google map. And I can see that McGee Road goes up to the right, and there's a couple little curves in here, and then here's kind of a big curve, and then it goes almost at a 45-degree angle to the left. Now if I go back over the plot or the plat, I can see that, you know, here's that big curve that goes off to the left, and then there's my property. So I can eyeball and say that, you know, my property is you know, right in this area here, based upon the way that the road lays out. So now I can zoom in on both of these. So I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. So there is our plat with our feet drawn on it, you know, L169, 170, and all that. And then here's my Google map on the left with my property, so I can zoom in there as well. So here is my property, and there's actually like a little logging road drawn on the plat. So here's my logging road that's drawn on the plat and goes back to here. So we can use those as reference points. So at this point, what you can do is start drawing your lot line. So grab the line tool and add a line or shape. And let's see. Right about here, I know that's 47 feet. So right a little bit south of that curve, right by where my driveway is, that's where I'm going to start my drawing. So I'm going to start right here. Okay, my second lot line goes about to here. And then I have a lot line that goes this direction. And a big one that goes up here. And then back to the road. And then I have, you know, some little bit of curves in here. So like I showed in episode 1 video, I'm going to just hit a bunch of clicks here and follow that contour of the road. And then finally I'm going to finish it up by clicking that final point. Now I'm going to type lot lines here, and then we're going to see how good we did. Now if I look at if I go back and look at the plat, this is 35 acres, you know, plus or minus probably a half an acre or so. So I'm going to hit save and see how well I did. So I came up with 28 acres in Google Maps. So I made the lot lines a little too small for my purposes. Now I want to make them a little bit easier to see. So I'm going to change the color to yellow. That's my favorite lot line color. It shows up nice. I'm going to make the polygon transparent. I'm going to make the borders a little bit thicker. Okay, so I got 28 acres. I need to get to 35. So this is where the ruler comes in handy. I know this first line is 1,275 feet long, you know, L176. So I'm going to grab my ruler tool, and I'm just going to click on that first line and see how long I made this first line. And I made it 1,131 feet. So I'm a little short there. I need to add on about 145 feet or so. And it's a lot of trial and error, and it really is up to you of how accurate you want to get it. But I need to add 125 feet onto this line. So I'm going to go back into the hand tool here to get rid of the ruler. Hover over it and then hold down the mouse button, and then you can move this wherever you want to move it. Remember where it is. I know that 1,175 feet was about out in here somewhere. And now I'm up to 28.7 acres. I can get my ruler tool and I can measure again. So I am now at 1280. Now for me that's close enough. So let's measure and see how long our next line is. This line here is currently 674 feet, and according to my chart it needs to be 500. Let's see here. Actually this line is a combination of L173 and 175, 318 and 518 would be about 830 feet. I'm at 671 feet. So this is too short. If I go to 831 feet, at this point, I can drag either this dot up here or this dot down. I'm going to do a little bit of both. So I'm just going to grab this point here and pull it down a little bit, and then take this point here and pull it out a little bit. Go back and use my ruler tool, and now I'm at 858 feet, about 20 feet too far, but you know, for the purposes of this demo, I'm good with that. Go back to the hand, reset the ruler tool. I'm going to measure this length here. So that's how I did the first couple to start this. Now I'm not going to bore you and take you through all of the adjustments I made. I'm going to show the video, but I'm going to speed it up so you can see how I went through it in there and how I dragged the points around, and I would keep going back and forth between seeing how much acreage I had, and I was really trying to get to the 35 acres in the plat and have the lines reasonably correct. And then after I got done with that, I did everybody else's lots near me just to see, just to validate, where I had things. And I'll actually share this map down in the description, so you should be able to pull it up yourself. I'll share a couple of my maps down there. So there's 35.1 acres. And it just, it's kind of a tedious process, and it really depends upon how accurate you want to make it. This concludes section 4, and hopefully you have enough information at this point where you can map out your own property using the 3 tools that I've described in episodes 1, 2, and 3. Welcome to episode 5. In this episode, we are going to be showing an RV park and campground that we have drawn out using all these tools that you've learned in episodes 1 through 4 in Google Maps. So the RV park is on 35 acres, and it has its own channel and called Linden Camp. So we're going to actually, link to Linden Camp there. There's a lot of construction videos, some tips for RVers that are boondocking, and right now I have all these layers unchecked. The only layer I actually have checked is the lot lines. So I've actually chose to have lot lines in one layer, utilities another layer, my roads and driveways, improvements, which would be buildings, some RV pads. I had 2 different configurations there, and then phase 2. So this is going to give you a really good idea of where Linden Camp is located. So I have lot lines checked here so far. I drew them in yellow, just like I did for the state capitol. Now they don't really show up in here because I'm zoomed way out, but I know that they're in Tennessee. So I'm just going to start, and I have a roller mouse, so I'm just going to start rolling my mouse in here on Tennessee. And eventually we're going to see a yellow dot up here. So I'm going to zoom in here and we'll start to see some of the larger cities. We got Atlanta coming into play here. Nashville's here. Now I know that Linden Camp is between Memphis and Nashville, so I'm just going to go out in this area and just start rolling in. And we should start to see a yellow dot show up. So there's the yellow dot where Linden Camp is. And I know because I have the lot line. So I can just keep rolling in here to actually see where Linden Camp is. And if you watch the part 1 video of the purchase, I showed some drone footage and talked about how the loblollies were on top of the ridges and how in between the property was the hollers, the hardwoods. And that becomes very apparent here in the Google Maps and the satellite view as well. You can see the exact same layout that I showed from the drone footage. So you don't even need a drone to do what I did. In fact, when I did the layout, I did it without the drone. So here is Linden Camp, And you can see all the other properties now real clearly, even the access road. So here's an access road that goes in. Here's an access road that goes into all these properties. So each one of these is a separate lot, and they have like 150 lots out here. So here is Linden. So to get out to the property from Linden, you just go south here on Mill Street, and you come down here, back out, and then proceeded down Old Highway 20 here, and then turn left on McGee Road. This here is if you watch the day 2 video of the boondocking, link down in the description if you haven't seen it. I actually showed a dash cam view of what a Perry County road looks like, and it looks like you could barely get one car down it. But that dash cam footage was taken right about this stretch here on the way to Linden Camp. Here's the south finger you hear me talk about, and the north finger we talk about. And I actually opted to divide the 35 acres up into 5 phases. Roughly 1 phase a year is what we kind of decided was going to be our target. We were going to design and build out the first phase and get some campsites there. Bring the infrastructure and the utilities past, through and past the first phase, so then we can just add on, the second, third, fourth, and fifth phases, as, time and money permits. And a lot of this we chose to do for cash flow reasons. We don't have a big war chest and a lot of money just sitting around that, to millions of dollars to just build this out from day one. So we decided to, build it out in phases. So phase 1 is going to have roughly about 5 campsites on it, pull through laser leveled sites. And there's the existing hunting path that was in there. Now let's start turning on some of these other layers. So let's look at the roads. So here is, I'm going to click on the roads level. Here's the roads that I designed for Comet Troy in phase 1. So you can see the old hunting path underneath here. You come in off the road, and there it is through there. And then let's add some improvements on here right away too. So I'm going to click the improvements tab. So this is where the campground office is being planned, and a 2-bedroom apartment above it, right off of that hunting path. And then this is to the north of the office is the 40 by 70 RV shop. It's 20 feet tall. So Comet Troy will be able to pull his RV in from the road and pull all the way through the garage and exit into the campground, or vice versa, come in from the campground and exit out, towards the road. There's a side shed that I designed for Comet Troy here. It's a lean-to, I guess you'd call it. It's just a roof that jets out from the side of the shop, about 13 feet up, with no sides, where he could park, tractors or skid loaders, or even park an RV in there that needs some repairs or worked on, and even in a pinch it could be used as an RV site. So the white areas here are driveway. So I felt that we needed to really expand the parking area and the driving area in this front face, especially if we're going to support big rigs. So we want to be able to support the 45-foot big rigs that are, towing a full-size Chevy Silverado like I do, and, be able to turn around. So the concept here is that you would pull in off the road, and, you would turn right past the office, and then this would be, a new path that would be cut, and then you could, come back out to the hunting path, and then head on out. So that was where we started, back at the end of 2021. So let's see, what else can I add on here? Let's add on some RV sites. Originally, I designed some back in RV sites where you'd come in and you'd back in your rig and you'd have a beautiful view of the the bluffs looking down here, out the side. The hollers are over here. So the way that the land laid, that you'd have, this camper would have a nice view down this holler, and then this camper would have a nice view down this holler. But then I'm like, what's wrong with this picture? I'm like, wait a minute. I'm visualizing, my rig, and I'm like, well, if I back in there, my front door and my canopy and where I'm going to put my lawn chairs is going to be out here looking into the driving path. I'm like, well, that's not going to be any fun. How is that going to work, right? So I had to scrap this plan, and rather than delete them and move things around, I just made a new layer. So I could, and I thought about pulling in front ways. You could pull in front ways, and then you'd be facing the right direction. But then how's that going to work with a fifth wheel? How are you going to unhook your truck and get out of there? It was just ugly, and I noped right out of it. And rather than just delete those, I put them in a different view. So I'm going to remove the RV rear view and bring in the RV front view. So what I decided to do instead was make some pull-through sites. So the idea here is that you'd come in, you'd go past the building, you'd go on the new path, you'd circle around, and then you either pull into this site here. So now you're pulling on in there, and your front door and awning and stuff would now be looking over the hollers in both of these sites, and then you just pull out and go out. And then I added some phase 2 stuff in here. Here's like a secondary road I had planned on doing. Some utilities I drew on here. So this is going to show and this is where I got a little crazy. So I have my field lines, my septic tank. I have high voltage transformers on here, and where the lines are going to run. I got pinpoints here where the camping units are, or the power poles are. And then this orange area was an area that I was going to have double duty of solar panels, and also clear some of the trees out of the way to have a nice view. So that is our phase 1 development of what we plan on doing at Linden Camp. Hi, this is Comet Troy. I have a visitor today, a resident that lives in the area, and she has some concerns about the one of the properties, lot 27, just down the road.
Yes.
Would you like to introduce yourself, and who are you?
Well, my name is Donna Tucker. I am a permanent resident. I live down on River Bluff Road. And my concern is whoever has purchased lot number 27 has purchased the end of our access road. And it is our only access to McGee Road when the Buffalo River floods and covers up River Bluff Road and even part of McGee Road around the big curve. But we would appreciate our access not being cut off by permanent buildings or anything like that. We're just a little concerned that lot number 27 doesn't know he bought the end of a road.
Right.
It's not used constantly, but we do have to use it when the Buffalo floods. And it floods quite often.
Right. So you have normal access through the town of Linden roads, I presume.
Yes.
To get to your property normally, but when the Tennessee River rises up, they let some water down from the dam, then you get some flooding, and you're basically trapped on your property through the normal passages.
The
And
Buffalo floods, and it floods big.
okay, for episode 6, the question of the day. How can you tell if your property is prone to flooding, or at least form an opinion? I mean, you can't really tell. You can't predict what nature's going to do, but there's some things that you can do with Google Maps. And I have where we left off here in episode 4. I'm actually going to go back to Google Maps here and pull it up without going into edit mode. So here's my Google Maps. I can click on menu. Your places. Maps. And Thor's TN campground. A standard Google map that's not in edit mode, and I can actually collapse the side panel here with the error, and I can change my layer to a terrain map. If you're not getting the elevations on the topology map, you have to zoom out a notch or two. So I'm going to zoom out one notch here, and then the elevations show up. So 600 feet in my case is highlighted around the area. And here's the river that floods. Now here's my property. And if I turn off the lot lines so I can actually see the topology lines underneath it, then I can see that my property here, the ridges. So here's the high point where this dot is. That's the highest point on my property. And that's where I'm sitting right now, as a matter of fact. While I'm recording this video, is where this dot is. Now every line you go down is another 40 feet, I discovered. And I validated that by looking at on my Harley. My Harley radio actually has altitude in it. And when I looked at the altitude here, I was at about 760 feet or so. So now if you look at the lines, the next line over here, that's down another 40 feet. So that would be 720 feet. And then another 40 feet lower than that would be 680. And then finally 640 feet. And then 600 feet is the lowest elevation that's highlighted here. And that's basically the lowest point on my property is at 600 feet above sea level. So water would have to come there in order to flood. Now the river that floods is the Buffalo River, which you can see up here in the top left. So if I take the 600 feet and I go down to the next line, which would be another 40 feet off of that, so 560 shows that line here, the terrain line. So this is 560 feet. Now at the top of the hill I was at 760 feet, so 560, this would be 200 feet difference between this elevation and the highest elevation on my property over here. So then you go out here, and the next elevation is down here, which would take us from 560 down to 520. And then we get closer to the river. And then here we go from 520 to 480. And then we're at the river. So I can tell by looking at this Google map that the river is at 480 feet above sea level. My highest point is at 780 feet. So or 760 feet. So in order for my property to be completely underwater, the Buffalo River would have to flood 300 feet. I don't think it gets that high. I mean, we would have probably a world-ending event if the Buffalo River rose 300 feet. So how far would it have to rise to, reach the foothills of my property? So we're at, this this elevation right here is 40 feet from 60, so that's 560. And we are, what did I say here, 480. So another 80 feet. So if the Buffalo River rose 80 feet, then I would see that water on the foothills of my holler. It ain't happening. But you know what? I'm gonna build a boat dock off of here, and I'm gonna tie a boat to it just in case, because you never know. So my answer to the question of the day is, will Linden Camp flood? I'd say like a snowball's chance in hell. And if Linden Camp is underwater, then I think the whole world is in trouble. Now, having said that, if I had a property along the river over here, like, you know, you saw in my neighbor, you know, she lives, Donna lives, I guess would be probably right about here, you know, right in that, right below 600 feet, between 600 and 560 feet. So her house, 580 feet. Now the Buffalo River, according to my calculations, is at 480. You know, Donna's house is 100 feet above that. So her house isn't going to flood. But now, if she has to leave this road, you know, the road, you know, look down here. You know, River Bluff Road here at the end is pretty much right at the river area. Right here is where I'm guessing it probably floods. So 600, 560, 520, 480. So right here we're at the level of the Buffalo River. So if the Buffalo River raises, you know, 10 or 20 feet, then this road gets cut off. So what Donna does when they flood is there's a path that goes from her house straight up the hills. So here's Donna's house, and her escape route, if this is flooded down here, her escape route is through this logger path that goes up through here and then out lot 27. That, my friends, is how you can check for flooding. And if you were looking at this property, you'd say, oh, well, yeah, you know, the property itself is a good 100 feet above the river, but how the hell am I going to get out of there? This concludes episode 6. So I'm really looking forward to helping Comet Troy with his endeavor and make a high-tech campground. Subscribe, like, ring the bell, comment, and this is Hef, the IT guy, and I will see you in the next video.